What's it called when 100,000 pro-ICE, pro-life hypocrites gather in Washington, D.C. to plot, scheme, and set their oppressive agenda for the next year? Well, it's called the March for Life, and while all eyes were on Minneapolis last Friday as 50,000 marched for actual lives, Washington, D.C. hosted a massive Christian nationalist extravaganza that got completely lost in the media sauce.
We would never let that shit go unchecked, so we sent AAF's very own Kristin Hady down to the march to attend the protests, the speeches, and the rally, and she's here to give us the download. Who was there, the vibes, and what sinister plans they laid out to bring us back to channel status.
That's right. All of that coming up on this episode of the Feminist Buzzkills podcast, the show that has filled its spank bank with videos of ICE falling face first on the streets of Minneapolis. I'm Liz Winstead, and I'm joined by my co-host Moji Alabodale.
Hello!
And our very special guest, co-host, just person we love, our programs officer, Kristin Hady.
Hey!
Hi, Kristin.
Hey, Kristin.
We have so much to talk about, all three of us together. But before we get to it, we have some housekeeping to get out of the way. Liz, tell them what's up.
That's right. Some good, cool news. It's the countdown to hanging with cool dudes and raising funds for abortion. For the third year in a row, actor Michael Shannon and musician Jason Narducy have gathered some of the coolest musicians around and are going on tour to celebrate the 40th anniversary of REM's album Life's Rich Pageant. They travel the country doing that album plus so many REM hits and some really awesome, deep cuts. It is amazing.
It is so cool. On the tour, they'll be selling posters and donating all those proceeds of the sales to benefit AAF's work. So all three of us on this pod have seen the previous concerts, and it is such a good time.
AAF colleagues and friends, and sometimes some of AAF ourselves, will be tabling at many of the stops, so show up and buy a poster. Tickets are going fast, but the link to purchase yours will be in the show notes.
That's right. We'll see you there. It's going to be a blast. Also, quick plug, join our Patreon. If you aren't already a Patreon member, sign up. Not only will you get a great birthday shout out, you'll support great content and get cool FBK merchant experiences. All pledges support this pod and all of our activism at Abortion Access Front. So go ahead and pledge at patreon.com/feminist buzzkills.
That is absolutely correct. Kristin, we are so glad you're here. And Liz, we're also glad you're back. Especially glad because you can tell people where you were now that you're back from there.
I know. I couldn't tell anybody where I was. I was in Athens, Greece at this incredible conference with 60 activists from around the world who have organized under authoritarian regimes.
Ooh, like ours?
Yes, very much so. There was people who gave presentations on organizing and activating under Viktor Orban in Chile, Argentina. It was really incredible, including our friends at My Voice, My Choice, and them kind of reflecting on the way they organized to get a massive abortion win for people who live in the EU and who live in countries that don't have abortion. So they have created just this incredible space to talk, an incredible space to learn and hear how they did it. And the thing that was super fascinating was all of them wanted to talk about what was going on with ICE and what was going on in Minneapolis.
Because it was right after Renee Good's murder.
Exactly. And so they had been really paying attention and following along. And they were like, as I am a proud Minnesotan and living in Minneapolis as we speak, they were just really impressed with just the way we were showing up and showing out. And, it was a perfect place to be, to just hear how people organized and galvanized and also kept themselves safe, kept their privacy safe, and also kept themselves not burning out. It was just really, really fascinating. And it was just so great to be able to then come back here and then just watch the groundswell in Minnesota and just leading us to this point of, 50,000 people marching last Friday in Minnesota for literally families and for freedom and for safety, while this March for Life was happening in D.C., which went virtually, and most years goes virtually unnoticed. But in a year where oppression is happening so profoundly, to watch 100,000 people march on Washington for horrible, nefarious reasons on the very same day at the very same time was incredible. And I feel like a lot of people don't even know what the March for Life is. Moji, will you just kind of lay it out?
I agree. People don't know what the March for Life is, but I also want to just go like, the march was happening while we saw pictures of the child in the blue hat who had been stolen off the streets in Minnesota. And so the juxtaposition was uncanny and heartbreaking.
Yeah, considering it's the March for Life, and I guess we'll get into it, but like they never once talked about the child in the blue hat or the 2-year-old that's been snatched.
Or Minnesota. They never said the state name.
Right. And one of the state representatives was on stage celebrating her own garbage anti-family bullshit in the name of saving babies. So yeah, it was wild. But anyway, tell people about the March for Life.
Okay, so the March for Life started in 1974, and it was a direct reaction to the Roe v. Wade decision of 1973. This anti-abortion activist lawyer woman named Nellie Gray started it. She wanted there to be a legislative response to the Supreme Court decision. They essentially, as early as 1974, wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade. It just took them 50 years to get to that. It was supposed to be a one-time event, but it has morphed into the largest anti-choice annual gathering in the U.S. with about 100,000 people showing up each year.
Which it's pretty easy to get that many people when all of the Catholic colleges and high schools and dioceses, they all bus their students in. So all of these students, they get days off school, the parishioners, they pay for the buses. So yes, it's really easy to get those numbers when students are like, deuces, I don't have homework now.
And also, like, just juxtapose that with, I can tell you for a fact, they keep calling all the people in Minnesota paid protesters. To have one state have 50,000 people who live in that state show up organically, and it's just like, we didn't have to do shit. We didn't have to bust anybody in. That's all I'm saying. People showed up.
The only people who bust themselves in are reporters who are looking around saying, wow, Minnesota's real activated.
The only people going out in this weather and temperatures in Minnesota are the people in Minnesota.
Exactly.
Hell yeah.
We know how to do it for sure. And it was wild because I had the great privilege of being able to, I emceed the massive rally in Minnesota. So they said between 50 and 70,000 people marching. And then they marched to the Target Center, which is where the Lynx play and the Timberwolves play. And it's about a 19,000 seat stadium. And they filled the stadium. And it was really moving to hear people who have been directly affected by ICE speak, to hear the faith leaders speaking out, real faith leaders. Again, the March for Life has all these fake Christians. And then you have literally 50 faith leaders on stage leading with compassion and talking about how they are putting their bodies on the line for families. And it was really cool, and then knowing what the March for Life is, it just was kind of sickening how they can just have enough money to throw some hate fest that big.
I've been following, of course, what's going on in Minnesota because it's incredible and heartbreaking in equal parts. And just seeing the people of faith, taking their churches and making them places where people are getting supplies out to people who are afraid to leave their houses. And you juxtapose that with the woman who on TikTok was calling churches a couple months ago, asking for food for a crying baby sound in the background, and got crickets from everyone. And you're just oh, that latter, those are the March for Life preachers.
But who did show up for that woman? The mosque.
Muslims. Ayo.
Without question, not even asking her faith, just oh, you have a crying baby, let me get to you right now.
And let me tell you what, these Somali aunties here in Minnesota, it is not safe for them to be out. And they were in their kitchens making samosas like mad people and having tea and samosas and passing them out to the people who are marching. People have just decided that safety is less concerning than their neighbors. And that is Minnesota.
Well, also, if your neighbors aren't safe, you're not safe. And that's the fact that it took not very long for Minnesota to realize that was the state of the world, and to activate around that is, again, inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is they hate us because we don't hate each other. People have been lucky enough to see Minnesota and to see people showing up and seeing those rallies and seeing how it works. So now we're going to paint the stark photo of sort of what the difference is. There may be twice as many people, but let's talk about what those vibes are like at the march by first just like laying out like what's happening.
So I actually happened to be at the March for Life. I think this would be my second one there. And the vibes are always just this weirdly curated candy coating. Like everything is positive and love and babies and this and that, because you have, thousands of teenagers running around DC driving those rentable scooters, taking people out on the sidewalks. You have families who are bringing all of their children. And so it turns into this congenial event that they just show up and they march. And most of these folks, honestly, I don't even think they really care about why they're there.
Also, I would counter that because as a Black woman who's been to several of the March for Life, it felt very nefarious to me. It always feels deeply uncomfortable. And those teenagers look like Brock Turner.
Well, on that note, it's also very white. It is very white.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We as an organization have been several times. They have this morality play that is hard to compete with, when there's families and there's like strapping young, like every husband looks like Pete Hegseth,
Yes.
right? Every woman has that like, not Mar-a-Lago face. I'm not going to go that far, but like that Megyn Kelly hair and their white children and there's some kid on the shoulders of some dad. And
there's like a wholesome Americana-ness to it.
But also I think it used to feel like that. But this year it felt very much like every trad wife video. Like if they were to go to a rally, like this is what it would look like. It felt super Instagrammable.
Yes.
In a weird Stepford way that was just, it felt extra this year.
Absolutely. There was so much content around, especially when you get into groups like Students for Life. That is their entire gig, is literally just wandering around making content and asking what do you love babies? Who is going to say no to that?
I am.
Me sometimes.
I knew as soon as I said that.
Yeah, I also don't like chocolate either. So like, we are the witches that they warned you of. But Kristin, like the march and the rally are sort of the culmination of this multi-day event that people come for. So will you talk a little bit about like, what are the kind of things that they do in this sort of lead up to this big march and this big rally?
Absolutely. So the march really it's why they're there. But of course, people are coming in for a couple of days and they're always going to do additional things. I mean, they have the stork ball, which we have been to.
Oh, let's talk about the stork
I've
ball.
been to, you mean sit around outside in costumes.
Oh my God, the stork ball. Can we explain the stork ball?
So the Stork Ball is a nice fancy gala, like a fundraiser for fake clinics and anti-abortion movement. Everybody gets dressed up to the nines and just, it's an anti-abortion circle jerk, but with a nice handbag.
But also, like, when you're trying to pretend like you have facts on your side around abortion and you call your crisis pregnancy center fundraiser the Stork Ball, it's like, oh my fucking God. So we counter-protested the Stork Ball one year where we literally dressed up like storks. We were outside in stork outfits being like, free the storks, free the storks. And so we had literature then that explained all of the nefarious things that fake clinics do. And we got inside the ball for a little while. And then people took the handout as they were walking in like, aren't you cute? And then you could visibly see them look at the thing and be like, arr, and raise their fists. It was really awesome. That was one of my favorite ways to counter them and show up. And that same one, actually, we did project outside the building, too, because Mike Pence was the keynote speaker that year. And it was like, Mike Pence doesn't understand how vaginas work, I think, or I don't know what we did projected, but
still true.
Something. Yeah. Even if it wasn't what we projected, it's just a statement of facts.
What other kind of crap do they do, Kristen?
Well, that's like the nice stuff at night, but they also do the shit that we don't like. So they absolutely will go to clinics. Clinics in the area always brace for an increase in protesters, especially at the Planned Parenthood. So there were multiple demonstrations on the Thursday before the March for Life, a rescue resurrection.
Who are they now?
I was going to say they have terrible names. What is that?
They're new, aren't they?
They're old, but they're new.
Are they a rebrand?
They are. They're a shiny new rebrand. Rescue Resurrection was created pretty much after the Trump administration happened, and they pardoned all of the all the anti-abortion protesters that were in prison with face charges. And they basically said, we are not going to prosecute face unless it's incredibly egregious, which, they didn't prosecute face before that pretty much ever. So everyone assumes it's just not going to happen, including these folks. So Rescue Resurrection is a bunch of antis that have been around for a while.
Was it formed by people who've been arrested protesting outside of clinics and they decided to form their own organization?
Yes. So in particular, Teresa Bukovac and Randall Terry. So Teresa is from POW, which is Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising.
She's the one who had the fetuses in her refrigerator.
Yep, she is a big part of Fetusgate. She also ran for president so that she could get anti-abortion fetal gore porn on TV.
That's a flex. Run for president so that you can put all of those horrible anti-abortion images in a political ad and they can't stop you.
And obviously she did not succeed. And then coincidentally enough, the other person she formed it with, Randall Terry from Operation Rescue, also ran for president at one point. So it's clearly people who think we all want to hear their opinions.
Well, that's what you have to do to be a clinic, a person there. You have to imagine people who don't know you care what you think.
Yep. And so they formed this group again to encourage other people and bring back the rescue movement that the FACE Act really kind of cut the legs off of. And so the day before the march, they were at Health and Human Services and they held the direct action. And I think around 20 of them, a little under, were arrested there. That was their big action.
What was their demand at Health and Human Services? Were they the abortion in the water? What were they yelling about?
Abortion pills. Yes, always abortion pills.
They were like, you're not doing the ridiculous review of abortion pills in light of misinformation as fast as we want you to.
It's wild.
And I think they also do organizing. Not only is it just some activists that come and do actions outside of abortion clinics and screaming at the government about why aren't you making abortion less accessible? It's also leadership having meetings and lobbying with politicians around their agenda, trying to push their agenda for sure.
Probably those same politicians we'll get to that were on stage.
100%, and some of it just seems wild. And if you're wondering who pays for it, well, a lot of people don't know this, but the Knights of Columbus are a gigantic sponsor because, they're the men's auxiliary arm of the Catholic Church and the anti-abortion movement. The Knights of Columbus have spent tens of millions of dollars buying ultrasound machines and providing them in these fake clinics. They're the number one provider of.
It's wild that these men who vow that they are not going to get near vaginas wants to spend all this money to get all up in vaginas.
They vow a lot of things. Every time there's a vow, it seems that person has a cache of child porn on their computer. So their vows are terrifying. The Thomas More Society, which is just like the Alliance for Defending Freedom, those sort of the two legal arms of the anti-abortion movement. Every time you hear a lawsuit, it's one of those two creeps doing it. James Dobson's organization, Focus on the Family, is a big sponsor. Catholic University, which is weirdly in Dallas, big sponsor. Live Action, who are the people that were orchestrating some of those fake Planned Parenthood sting videos with David Daleiden. And then this weird company called Super Cute Dresses, which we're going to put a link to this in the show notes.
The opposite of all of that.
It is a dress company that looks like they raided the storage facility where all of the costumes from Little House on the Prairie were put. Mm-hmm. And then they just pulled them out. And they ran an ad for it. We'll just put a link to the whole March for Life if you have any interest in watching the whole thing.
If you hate yourself like we do.
Yeah. And in the first 3 minutes, they show a bunch of ads, and they show an ad from super cute dresses. And it's literally grown-ass women in these gingham dresses, like hanging up laundry and doing some shit that seems like super next level, like you're captive. Like, blink twice if you need us to rescue you.
And holding their 3 to 8 kids, literally holding them. Also, Liz, you forgot to point out the Heritage Foundation, architects of Project 2025, are absolutely huge sponsors of this, and it's very important.
They're going to play a key role in our conversation a bit later, so they are going to definitely come up. And there's been so many ways that we have countered these folks with groups of people, but it's gotten scarier and scarier. Not that we care, but like, holy shit.
So, Kristin, we made it sound not great, but it could be worse, right? It sounded not like people we want to spend time with, but there was a darker element, and I would love for you to speak to that.
Absolutely. There always is a darker element, right? That's not what they're going to show you on TV, and that's not what they're going to broadcast. But, the first group that we really encountered when we got there was Patriot Front, which is a group of white nationalists.
Yikes.
They're the assholes that are wearing the white gaiters across their face so you can't identify them.
I call them khaki stormtroopers because they're like, they always have them like khakis, you know what I mean? But then the white gaiters are like, what's happening, dudes?
The look doesn't work for everybody. Some of them, they're white gaiters. It looks like they're wearing a soggy diaper on their faces. That's just a note, Patriot Friend, if you're listening. You might want to reevaluate that. But they were there, and they've been there for several years, every year now. At one point, they had taken over the march and, marched in front with everybody. This time, they were just standing there. They are a part of the movement. Christian nationalism, white supremacy, that is the foundation of all of this. And there were groypers around and other fascists. You can't keep it all on the bottom.
Well, and Kristin, I feel sometimes too, the thing that gets lost in this is these people who run the actual march are wicked fucking smart. Mm-hmm. They are people who allow this to happen and pretend like they don't see it. And so then Patriot Front is there with their people because we know that the anti-abortion movement, you just look at who they elected for their president. They overlook every single thing. But if you are aligned on oppression of any birthing person or woman or anybody, then you can be part of this. But you might not be able to speak, but you certainly are allowed to influence people. And it wasn't just Patriot Front and groypers and all those people. Like within the march, some other OG anti-abortion people who they had kind of not fully embraced, but were now out and loud and proud, this organization called the White Rose Resistance. And I wish you could talk about them and sort of how they're part of the narrative in pushing this agenda forward.
Yeah, so White Rose Resistance is an organization founded by Seth Gruber. Seth Gruber is the big name in the anti-abortion movement. His mother ran a fake clinic. He is very fire and brimstone. He is not the kind of pro-lifer who is all about love your baby, we love the women. It is very much child sacrifice and murder. And so White Rose Resistance, the name comes from Hans and Sophie Scholl, who were executed for organizing against Nazis, organizing against the Third Reich. And there are also other orgs called White Rose Resistance. So just that note, if you are looking them up. So White Rose Resistance would definitely be pro-lifers. I do not think they are as hard line as we would say abolitionists would be, where everyone is condemned to death, but they absolutely want abortion to be charged as murder, providers, and abortion seekers. So much more hard line than the mainstream movement.
They also have just started a sort of political arm where they're going to try to get candidates elected. And what I think is scary is they have chosen somebody who is from the most extreme wing of the anti-abortion movement, the leader of Operation Save America, a guy named Jason Storms, to run their political operation to try to get candidates elected and to put money into getting statewide and federal. So, what does that mean about who maybe they are now and how they're going to amp up their scary shit to the next level.
The fact that Jason is leading it is clearly that they are much more militant and much more hardline, because Jason Storms and Operation Save America 100% fully believe that all abortions should be categorized as murder and subject to whatever the laws for murder are in your state, which, as many of us know, is literally the death penalty. So we are seeing all of this money and this more influence and more power moving into the political sphere to educate and really push politicians to start passing those laws that make abortion murder.
And I think that it's important for folks to know that Jason Storms has already been working with Operation Save America to help get these candidates elected into state office around the country. When you look at South Carolina, when you look at some of the really strong conservatives that are in Wisconsin, his father-in-law lives in Wisconsin and is a total monster. And so he is very powerful. Just to give you an idea of Jason Storms' edict, he was one of the biggest champions of Kyle Rittenhouse, doing fundraisers for Kyle Rittenhouse when Kyle Rittenhouse came to Wisconsin and murdered someone. I think it can't be understated when you choose somebody like Jason Storms, who firmly believes in the agenda of defying all laws of man that go against the laws of God, what that direction looks like and how dangerous that direction is.
It's very dangerous. I mean, we are seeing these bills in South Carolina. Even when they don't pass, we're seeing them get farther and farther, and they get more sponsors than ever before. So there's clearly movement on it. And now there are other mainstream organizations, even Abby Johnson, one of the most famous anti-abortion activists. She worked at Planned Parenthood, left, now tries to get other workers out of the abortion movement. Even she, who for many years was, we shouldn't prosecute, we shouldn't criminalize abortion, women are victims. She's now on the other side, that absolutely it should be criminalized and abortion seekers and providers should be going to jail. So there's momentum that is happening.
Well, I feel like for a while they were really leaning into the respectability of it all, right? Like it's a much softer sell for people that we love them both. Women are victims here. But I think that the success that they've seen ending Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision has sort of given them strength to say like, oh, let's not stop here. Like, actually, if you look at the origin of the march, they should have stopped marching in 2023, right? Oh, Roe v. Wade has ended. We can stop marching, but like they need a new target. And I think they're pushing this because they've had some success.
They're finally saying the quiet part out loud of what they always believed, right? I think they felt they had to lead with love them both. The women are victims. It's the abortion doctors who are monsters, when the whole time they have wanted to just, put us back in the kitchen and oppress us and do all this stuff. And now they unleashed it.
It's a frog in a pot, right? You can't start with that. You have to.
Right.
You don't get 100,000 people to show up or jail women, kill women for having abortions, right? You have to sort of get them to love them both. Oh, we're doing non-help for women who need abortions, who want abortions. Oh, some women suffer, but it's just that doctors don't understand laws. Actually, no women should have abortions. Like, you have to get them there. And I think that's what we're seeing, the movement continuing to push it. And I bet you if they got capital punishment for abortion, there's a line that we can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying. And that's the whole thing. I think they couldn't lead with that. I think what I'm trying to say is now they can.
Yes. And I agree. That's exactly what I was saying, too. Now they can.
And it was funny because watching Kristin, I saw some cutaways of some of the signs at the march of like the respectability wing, and the quote unquote respectability wing. Like there was a bunch of signs with a picture of Charlie Kirk that said, get married, have kids, you won't regret it. And Charlie Kirk should not be mainstreamed. And yet, here we are.
They had two Charlie Kirk signs, actually. They had that big one, and then there was another one that had the freedom for preborn babies. There's a lot going on.
And then there was a sign that was just like, have more babies.
Make more babies.
Just straight up. Like, if you don't like Charlie Kirk, take the most important salient point, which is hot, messy cream pies for everyone. Ew.
It felt very wild to me to watch all of it. And I feel like the images with Charlie Kirk and the have more babies, have babies, get married. You won't regret it. Baby, baby, baby. Like, they've always been like, marriage is important. Family is one man, one woman. Jesus values, yada, yada. But it feels like this year that having babies and being married, first of all, it's a directive to women only. They used to have like real men, blah, 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 and all this shit, right? Now, this year felt very much to me like the directive that this is the only valued path that's going to be worthy of promoting for women.
That's 100% it. And as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I see what the other end. Right now, they're like, get back in the house. And then if this wins, it'll be like, never leave the house.
You're allowed to come out for the march. Make sure you've made enough snacks for your entire group.
In your super cute dress.
In your super cute dress. It comes with a butter churn when you order it.
Oh, fun. And that just played out in the speeches, right? Like, the setup's very impressive when you watch the March for Life. It looks like, you know, a big, massive concert, right?
Yeah.
And they had a band that was sort of like this Christian Coldplay, you know, the guy with the beanie and then just singing shit songs.
They're from where I live.
Are they Cleveland
I see
Coldplay?
that damn bus all the time. Stay in D.C.
And then they had, you know, the speakers, like, it felt, I don't know, what did you guys think of like this, the lineup as a whole? Did it resonate with you at all?
Obviously, this can't resonate with me, but the front end, I think there was a terrifying display of like legislative wins, right? They had the vice president, they had the president piped in, they had the speaker of the house. Like, they had so much power on that stage, so much federal power on that stage, saying terrifying things. That to me was really, really frightening.
And we're going to get to some of those speeches in a second. But like, my takeaway from it was like, Usha, Usha, Usha. Like, oh my God, it was like an Usha baby shower. And then it was how much money and how much power we are going to dump into fake clinics. I felt like those two themes were pretty much gigantic.
So they went in on the policy successes and the future policy plans that they had. And I feel like Mike Johnson really laid out both the playbook and like the wins that they've had, all of which are terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, they first laid out the Mexico City policy extension, which is really scary. It means that we can no longer fund international organizations that are helping people with family planning. If they talk about, have ever heard of, if you use the letters ABORTION in any other words you say, it's a mess.
Or DEI, or equality, or women. Like, all these words are basically Xing them out of any sort of help from the United States.
Yeah. And that's really scary because on top of just like us just recently divesting ourselves from the World Health Organization, to then in turn say we are expanding our policy that we will not help people who are dying in childbirth and feeding children and all the other stuff. That's terrible. Then they talked about, and this was just kind of shocking that, they just get away with shit. They're going to prosecute to the fullest extent Planned Parenthood for unlawfully getting PPP loans during COVID. It's like, I'm sorry, why? Why was it unlawful? Why was it? I believe it wasn't. And also Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, the list of Congress people who got sham loans.
For organizations that don't exist or did nothing.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Planned Parenthood was helping people during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the third policy was ending fetal tissue research, which we need that.
How dare you brag?
About hurting people. That's what it is. They were bragging about hurting people.
I've said it before, but like having a sister who died from ALS, knowing that they do not want to use fetal tissue research. And by the way, this started with Kennedy and the vaccines and all this other shit where tissue lines are decades old. They're not just like harvest. They act like people are having abortions so that somebody can cure something. That is not how this shit works. And they have made it so hard anyway, where trying to have facilities have to dispose of fetal tissue, having funerals and cremations and every other thing, saying that we will not allow people to have medical research that could save lives is a win. It's a win for them.
The anti-science party is really excited to anti-science to the detriment of living people.
Seems pretty anti-life if I'm looking at it.
I mean, it's true. And, when you're the anti-science party, you certainly aren't going to have speakers who know anything about science, right? And so let's get to some of the crackpot shit that came from the stage. I think I want to kick off with a congressman from New Jersey.
Chris Smith. He's always there.
He's a perennial speaker here. He's like fire and brimstone. But here was his offering just on the facts of how medication abortion works.
The abortion pill, mifepristone, is baby poison that kills the unborn child by starving the baby girl or the baby boy to death. That's how it works. Starvation, a pill to starve another human being. We now know that the abortion pill, we've long suspected this, is extremely dangerous to women. And I asked the media, investigative reporters, start uncovering or get rid of this cover-up that we've had since the Clinton administration.
So can I first say that I thought the pill that starves people was Ozempic? I have been misled.
Also, I'm like, wait a minute. It's how do you starve with something that doesn't eat?
That has no system with which it digests food?
How do you starve with something that doesn't eat? Yes.
I don't know. But I mean, that's just the kind of wild, it starves it. That's what it does. It's like you can only take medication abortion up until 12 weeks of pregnancy. There is no digestive system. There is no starving. There is no anything. In fact, I'm just going to remind people that prenatal vitamins are for the person who's pregnant because the fetus is literally not starving. It's causing starvation and causing nutrition depletion in the person who is pregnant. So, Chris Smith, you are solely mistaken.
Also, you cut it off early before he got to and he cited the bogus research. 10% of people who use the abortion pill suffer adverse effects. That's a fucked up stat. But even if it was real, 10%? 10%?
And that's based on some quack study that we're going to talk about later because it's going to be one of my predictions for where we're going. But he also went on, there was a poll done by the Knights of Columbus, the vaginal wand purchasers for the movement, teamed up with Marist University, which is a Catholic university. So Catholic on Catholic crime about to happen in this poll, to ask people how they felt about fake clinics.
The smears that are being borne by the pregnancy care center community are unconscionable, and we need to push back as never before to protect them. Let me remind everybody that the Knights of Columbus did another Marist poll, and it did find that 84% of Americans, including 75% of Democrats, support pregnancy care centers.
This poll was cited throughout the whole march, and I kept wondering what exactly was the question because they were so excited to cite this fact and it sounded like bullshit. So they literally asked, do you support pregnancy help centers that offer women real help, not pressure? I'm for that. That sounds great. That sounds like Planned Parenthood.
That's right. 100%, and so I was like, so when you find out that that's how they asked it, we were so enraged yesterday when we were planning for the show that I was like, I'm just going to throw up on Instagram a poll of what they actually do and say, would you support tax dollars going to, lying to pregnant people saying that the abortion causes a mental illness or sterility? Would you want your tax dollars covering an untrained, non-medical person
volunteer
doing an ultrasound? Would you want your tax dollars forcing somebody to have to volunteer their time at a fake clinic in order to get diapers? And so the results of our poll, we had 100 people who responded, and 99% wrote either fuck no, hell no, fuck them, fuck you. The way you phrase a poll, my point is really an indicator of the actual feeling of the people.
I do wonder, of the AAF followers, who's that 1%? I want to know.
I don't think it was a follower. I think it was a hater.
It was Mike Johnson.
It was Mike Johnson.
It was Mike Johnson. And so, it was just there was a lot of like blah, blah, blah. There was a woman who said like she told her abortion reversal story. She took the first abortion pill and then said she gobbled up a bunch of other, progesterone and then miraculously didn't terminate her pregnancy. But she also just didn't take the whole regimen. So it's kind of like, how do you know you actually reversed your abortion or you just didn't complete your abortion?
Literally, just don't finish your pills and you statistically have a pretty similar chance of your pregnancy just continuing. You don't even have to go to that hotline.
Right.
It's an anecdotal story. And so I'm like, did she even take an abortion pill? Did she just say, oh, here's a great way to end up on the National Mall talking a little yarn? You know what I mean? That's just a thing to consider.
Conspiracy theory emoji. I like it.
I think you might be right.
And while remaining fully on brand, Usha's inseminator took an already awkward day and made it somehow weirder and with yet another inexplicable made-up story with, of course, child sacrifice.
One of the telltale signs of an ancient brothel in the pagan world was that you'd always find a large number of baby skeletons nearby. A lot of baby skeletons. And those bones predominantly belong to boys. Because unlike little girls, those boys would be of no use to the future adults who are running those brothels. Now, this is shocking to us because we grew up in a Christian culture and were formed by religious values. Even those of us who aren't particularly faithful, it's a shocking thing to hear.
When I heard this soundbite, first of all, I was like, what the ever lovin' fuck is he talking about? Because, first of all, baby boy bones, because boys aren't needed for a brothel. Does he know how brothels work? Like, if you don't have customers, you don't have a brothel.
Yeah. Also, does he not know how sex work works? Because all genders perform sex work.
Yeah.
Does he not know how conservatives work? Because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of stories that come out about conservatives actually loving boys.
Also, in pagan times.
That's exactly the pagan world. What do you mean? What are we talking about?
Well, also I'm sure that there was plenty of abortions that happened back in the day in pagan brothel times. And also there was probably not a whole lot of graveyards and places and people probably miscarried. Also, that dude, he has an unquenchable appetite for inexplicable stories that just make everybody want to leave.
He makes up things. He loves to make up a story. I'm also like, the pagan world. Can you point to it in the map, sir?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, can you just give us a time period? When are you talking about?
I'm surprised he didn't say that in the brothel they were eating the babies and the cats and the dogs.
He's the least charismatic motherfucker I have ever heard.
Oh my gosh.
I would like to apologize on behalf of Ohio.
He's so on brand.
Our bad.
So there was just a lot of that. But to me, like, there was a moment when Mike Johnson spoke. The clip that I want to play is not about abortion, but more about how the Speaker of the House views the foundation of America and how they're moving forward. And I think it's really important to hear what Mike Johnson said as a backdrop for not only this movement, but sort of the times that we're living in now.
The founders understood that we are made in the image of our Creator, and that He is the one that gives us our inalienable rights, the rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Our rights do not derive from the government. They derive from God Himself, and we need to remind everybody of that.
Just having him lay out there and say we need to remind people, especially that was the part, that it's not laws, it is God. And the thing about that really makes me crazy is that our literal history is about people who left religious oppression, fought a war, and started a country grounded on the separating of church and state. So much so that they included that separation in the very first amendment to the Constitution. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, and it prohibits government from establishing an official religion. Like, no. First thing we want to tell you, in this new country we are starting, is no, no, no on religion. And then here he is.
Proudly proclaiming from the stage that it's not government, it is religion that gives you your rights. Also, so if you don't believe in God, you don't have rights. I mean, I think that's what he was saying as well. And with this statement, right, he is essentially nodding to the Christian nationalists we spoke about earlier, who believe and who teach each other and their children that Christians are a nation that should defy the laws of man if they go against the laws of their God. Not everyone's God, just their one God.
And circling back again, you know, we talk about Jason Storms, the extremist leader of OSA and White Rose Action. He is driven, teaches, and lives this as a tactic. No law but God's law.
Also, fun fact, Mike Johnson was a lawyer for Jason Storms in 2009, and they were using this argument to justify him terrorizing abortion providers in Wisconsin.
If you didn't think he was gross enough, he was an attorney at Alliance for Defending Freedom. And so he is living this profoundly. And as we have experienced so much and talked about so much at Abortion Access Front and confronting these people all the time, when Mike Johnson says, it's important to remind you, Liz Winstead's going to say, it's important to remind you that these people foundationally believe that they have permission to harm, if any law in America, what they believe. That means you have permission to murder doctors, harm activists. You can declare anybody a domestic terrorist who goes against what they believe to be a Christian way of life. And so that means that they can erase compassion. They can erase anything because they have reinvented Christianity into Christian nationalism. And that is the foundations that we are kind of working with right now. And we can never sugarcoat it. And we shouldn't think that they are to be reasoned with.
Yes. And also, we shouldn't think that they are Christians in the sense that we should think of Christianity, right? They are Christian nationalists, and their interpretation of Christianity is not Christianity writ large. It is a very specific white nationalist interpretation of Christianity that subjugates women, that is racist, and is not helpful and harmful.
And to wrap this up into a big, giant, ugly, stinky shit bow, all of this messaging that we heard, all of the dog whistles that we heard, all of the emphasis towards make more babies, get married, have babies, all of it is just reiterating what they have been handed as their playbook. Because what folks don't know is that Heritage Foundation strikes again, and they have come up with a new policy paper that no one is talking about called Saving America by Saving the Family. And it's sort of a Project 2025 for the subjugation of women. And all that they talked about and all of this like softer side of what they're doing and the harder side of what they're doing, all of the messaging comes from this directive. Moji, tell them a little bit about like what is in this plan.
They say that the family is the foundation of civilization and marriage. The committed union of one man and one woman is the only way for America to thrive in the future. So that's their thesis. And they basically say that a quarter of American children live in single-parent homes and that is a tragedy. That is a tragedy. And for that tragedy, they blame abortion, they blame no-fault divorce, they blame casual sex, and they blame childlessness by choice. Those are the things that are leading to the tragedies in this country. And they're laser focused on heterosexual married couples and their biological children as the only structure worth supporting. These are people who are influencing our policy and our government. And to this end, they think women shouldn't work outside the home. They say DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion hurts family, and that they believe that the might of the federal government needs to get behind bringing this vision of family into reality for everyone.
And just like Project 2025, they're not citing this as a thing. They're acting like she doesn't even go here and then taking all of the tenets from it and working it into policy, working it into speeches, making it more palatable, like making all this tradwifery that's on the internet for kids seem like it's fun and then it's a way to go.
They called it A Manhattan Project to restore the family.
The Manhattan Project to restore the family. That is, the Manhattan Project did not restore any family. If I'm not mistaken, the Manhattan Project basically killed everyone. So, any organization that compares its let's make the family better by blowing up the world is maybe somebody we shouldn't listen to.
Yeah. And also, we talk about the subjugation of women, but this idea also subjugates men.
Yes. So basically, let's go around real quick. What do we need to worry about after watching the March for Life? What are y'all focusing on? What do you think their big plans are going to be so we can tell people?
This Christian nationalist lifestyle creep, this normalization of pronatalism, which basically is just have all the babies. I feel like that is the insidiousness of that and the seductiveness of it to people who are uncurious, right? Men who are just like, oh yeah, all I want is a woman to have, a woman to fuck, could be really interested in this and not thinking of like how that subjugates them and traps them. That scares me. And the fact that our vice president is standing on a stage and harping on about his newly pregnant wife with their fourth child, and everyone is clapping him on the back and saying, yes, have more babies. Terrifying.
Kristen, what do you think?
Well, I think it's clear that they're going to be coming for abortion pills in whatever way they can. The Trump administration asked a federal judge to pause a lawsuit filed by Louisiana that would seek out broad nationwide restrictions on access to mifepristone, which is the abortion pill, while the FDA is reviewing the drug's safety and regulations. The Louisiana lawsuit wants to roll back the current federal rules that allow Miffy to be prescribed via telemedicine and mailed to patients, which after the fall of Roe, we have seen telemedicine really explode because for a lot of Americans, that's the only access to abortion care that they have available to them. And of course, they're citing that terrible study that was absolutely bullshit that we talked about. So I think moving forward, we are just going to see they're going to try and take our abortion pills by whatever means possible.
I mean, I'm going to piggyback on you, Kristen. I think that they're going to try to do it any way possible. They're trying to do this campaign of abortion pills are in our drinking water, which is big. But I think that the study that Kristen referred to, it's a crackpot study, literally by a website. It's not a research arm. And they took some shoddy data from insurance companies to try to make it look like medication abortion is wholly unsafe. And they're really leaning into this study to effectively be able to roll back mifepristone entirely or back to unthinkable, basically non-existent access. And so I think we need to be looking at that for sure. A couple calls to action so you don't feel like, oh my God, you guys, that was really dark. One thing, if they're going to empower fake clinics like they announced they were going to do from Stage, we have a great program called Expose Fake Clinics. Go to that website, exposefakeclinics.com. It'll help you, help us, and we can all work together to at least raise awareness for anybody who is seeking abortion care to, if one of these horrible places pops up into their radar, into their search engine, they'll be able to see some amazing reviews that tell them, nope, this place won't help you. This place is an anti-abortion center instead. So at least we can help guide people away from them entirely. That's one. Two, we are going to make sure that if you go to plantcpills.org, if you're looking for medication abortion, if you want resources to try to find medication abortion, learn more about the efficacy and safety, it's a one-stop shop. And lastly, we are so concerned at Abortion Access Front here and at Feminist Buzzkills about the FDA using this horribly discredited study that we are going to be following what happens with this study, and we're creating right now avenues with which we can either get to the FDA in the comments. I would say if you feel comfortable telling your abortion story using medication abortion, that is one avenue that we're going to try to make available to you, or if you want to do it on your Instagram or whatever. But we're going to be coming up with some strategies and plans for you to be able to join with us to let the FDA know that the people who have used it for the past 25 years should be the data, because that data is strong, and the more of our voices are that have used these pills can circumvent any kind of bullshit that they try to come at us. So that is some good news, and those are some ways that you can do it. But it's a lot, and I wish more people watch the March for Life.
Well, if you want to watch it, as always, links to the march and everything we've talked about will be in the show notes. So you can look in the show notes and find yourself watching the March for Life, and also follow the incredible links that Liz shared that are calls to action about what we can do. And you can find the best, most up-to-the-minute resources on accessing abortion care and funding for your care on our website, aafront.org. Our Charlie chatbot on the bottom right will walk anyone anywhere in the country through their options and resources for abortion.
We're going to also throw into our show notes that crackpot study we were talking about, so you can for yourself understand the kind of data that they're using. So we'll make sure that that link is there as well. And just remember, if you didn't know about the March for Life, or you didn't know about Jason Storms, or you didn't know about the White Rose Resistance or any of that, that's why this show is important, because these things are not given enough attention. They're the foundations of how we lose our bodily autonomy, and we want to bring that to you. So please, 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 if you are appreciative of that and feel like you're smarter because of it, help us spread the word. Like, subscribe to our podcast, give us a 5-star rating. Every bit helps to reach more listeners.
And that's our show. Kristin, thank you for joining us. Listeners, thank you for listening. Did we make you smarter? Did we make you laugh today? If so, show us some love by liking, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating. And if you really want to go extra, join our Patreon. You'll support great content and get cool FBK merch and experiences. All pledges support this pod and all of our activism at Abortion Access Front. Pledge at patreon.com/feminist buzzkills.
Plus, Abortion Access Front brings the news and info every single day. So stay connected with us on social media at Abortion Front across all platforms. With your help, we can get all of this information to more people and get more people to understand how big this assault is on abortion access.
Now that we've got you informed, let's get you activated. Check out our awesome Operation Save Abortion trainings at operationsaveabortion.com. You can get an abortion activist glow up and learn about all the areas abortion providers and patients need your help. And while you're there, poke around our super cool activist calendar. It's full of local and national actions and educational opportunities, so you can dive right in. Again, all of that is at operationsaveabortion.com.
AAF offers many other opportunities, and one of our favorites is our mutual aid program called Adopt a Clinic. Adopt a Clinic is a great way for the public to support independent clinics, abortion funds, clinic escort groups, and patients directly by ordering much-needed items from an org's wish lists. This week, we are showcasing another Minnesota clinic, Whole Women's Health of Minnesota. You can send them wish list items like gift cards for their patients, self-care items, and menstrual products.
Also, for folks who are in Minnesota and perhaps are afraid to go out or just feel a little scared but need some help, Whole Women's Health of Minnesota offers 24/7 abortion. Click virtual care on the website for deets. Whole Women's Health staff is majority women of color with a women of color physician. Many staff are fully bilingual in Spanish and offer translations to other languages. They accept Minnesota Medicaid and almost all private insurance plans in Minnesota, while most other virtual care programs are cash. They don't geolocate anybody, and they don't track addresses or ID people or care if they're citizens or not. They offer pills by mail for up to 12 weeks of pregnancy.
Also, you can have an abortion at their clinic in Bloomington. The clinic in Bloomington does not let ICE in, and all staff have been trained on ICE safety protocols. They go up to 20 weeks and also offer medication abortion in person if you'd prefer that to mailing. They also have financial support for folks who don't have Medicaid or insurance and need help. And in these times in Minnesota where it is unsafe to go out, or you might be afraid of ICE, they want to make sure that your abortion experience can happen and can happen safely. So visit wholewomenshealth.com/abortion-clinics, Bloomington-MN, and we'll put that in the show notes.
And if you want even more ways to get involved, sign up to volunteer. We need you. Go to our website, aafront.org, fill out the volunteer form, and let's figure it out together.
And join us next week. We'll be joined by Karen Thompson, legal director at Pregnancy Justice, to discuss the ongoing criminalization of pregnant people, like the Kentucky woman who was just arrested and almost charged earlier in January for having an abortion. Also, comedian and writer Abby Govindan talks about her new solo show, Pushing 30, and about the horrors of getting older. Is 30 older? I don't know. 30? Okay.
Womp.
I know. It makes me feel like I'm Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. She's actually really hilarious. Finally, our amazing crew, FBK, is edited and produced by Remy DeTournay and Jin Moon for Abortion Access Front.
And this week, we're not even doing a show your whole ass because this whole episode is chock full of ass.
So much ass. Kristin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I love it.
Thank you, Kristin.
Feminist Buzzkills, the podcast from Abortion Access Front. New episodes drop Friday. When BS is poppin', we pop off. And if you want to support our podcast and all the work of Abortion Access Front, like, subscribe, and join our Patreon at patreon.com/feministbuzzkills.